Hello and welcome to the last section of the Ed209 Unreal Training DVD. In this section we're going to cover some basics of Unreal Ed Kismet, and we're going to look at making an Ed209 conveyor. So what I've got in front of me at the moment is a quick room I've knocked up for us to use. So if you can open Ed209-03, we can get to work with this one. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to talk about some of the bits and pieces that I've used to create this room. First off, the general sort of ethos in game engines at the moment is that we'll use brushes, which are the additive walls that we made in the first couple of videos. Just as holders, containers, and main sections of geometry. It used to be in the past where a lot of these brushes were the main primitives or actual building blocks of the levels, but now they're just, if you like, the basic bits and pieces. What's happened is that meshes from packages like 3dsmax, Maya, XSI have taken over, and the reason for this is just purely because game engines are have a lot more resources than they ever used to. Before you would have, say, just 6 polys for, or 12 triangles for this entire shape, where now we can look at it, we can see all these cuts and bits and pieces that the processor can load. So when you're mapping, you need to think about using static meshes to help bring out some of the details and the better pieces of your level. However, this is not really about mapping, this is just about Ed209, this DVD, so we'll probably cover that in a separate set. So, what's happened? I've just made a room full of brushes, textured a couple of walls very basically, put a few lights and static meshes in. To find static meshes, we'll just use our general browser, and you can find all sorts of packages with static meshes in. So I'm just going to select only static meshes, and that gives us all of the packages with just these meshes in. We can say fully load the support, or so let's say the clutter maybe, and there's all sorts of different meshes in here that we can say load into our environment. We load these in purely by right clicking on a surface, add actor, and then static mesh. 9 times out of 10 it doesn't quite get it right, so you have to adjust the height and make sure that it's actually on the surface. This depends really on the pivot point that you've used in a 3D application as to how it places it in the engine. These meshes pretty much behave like they would do in the generic 3D package. We can rotate them, we can scale them in different bits and pieces. Quite a few game engines won't actually let you scale static meshes, so Unreal is quite handy in that way. We can do it via the actual scale controls with the uniform or non-uniform scale, or we can actually do it numerically on these draw scale icons towards the bottom end of the screen here. So that's how I've placed these particular setups here. I've just opened some of the content in the engine and then utilised that in this map. If you want to find more static meshes, then you need to find your Unreal installation folder, which is under Program Files, Unreal Tournament 3, UT Game, Cooked PC, and then most of them are in the Environments folder. Again, this does depend on where you install it. Mine's just in the default section. So, you can pick different bits and pieces to go with this. There's all sorts of kind of like Hong Kong district environment sections, space textures. There's really quite a lot to go with, so it's just about spending the time looking and learning what sort of packages are and what you want to utilise in your level. Just going to do a quick couple of seconds on the materials. Before, all we did was select a texture and apply it to a surface, which is all well and good, but there's all other things that we can do as well. If we select a surface, we can say, let's find some form of texture. Try HU4. Let's, for instance, apply a stone wall texture to this ceiling. We can adjust how this is scaled. As you can see at the moment, it's more like a rectangular shape. We can change that to a square kind of fit if we wanted to. You can get this from the Surface Properties tab, which will come up here, and this is just like UV editing in your traditional 3D package. The only real addition here is we can pan or nudge the texture in a different direction. You can see here by just by clicking on it I can nudge it one way, and then by putting shift on it I can push it the other way. It just helps align things. Light maps, we can adjust how well shadows display on the surface by giving it more or less texture resources to play on. And we can also adjust the alignment. So this is really cool because we can say repeat this more or repeat it less. If we want to repeat the tile more, then obviously we put greater numbers than 1 in, otherwise you start going into the 0 point values. So for instance, let's say 0.5 and hit apply, and you see it pulls it out there. It's made it thinner essentially. There we go, 1 by 1. So we can just how this tiles on the surface, and it's kind of helpful to us if we want to align things nicely, like so. So now we've got some big tiles on the ceiling. So that's essentially how this room was made, with a mixture of just plonking lights in, changing their properties. If you remember, the S ones are standard spotlights and the U ones are affecting the dynamic objects. One other thing I want to cover is just quickly saving again. This is probably the most common mistake. We tend to save all of the work that's in WIP development, or how you want to say that, in custom maps unpublished. This folder will not be read by the game engine unless you start it with a special shortcut. So if you actually want to see your maps in game, you'll need to save them in the publish folder. Okay, that's just a word of warning, because what can happen is people can start saving things all over the shop, and it's not really quite understandable. So that's the basic premise of how it works. You've got your unpublished and your published folders. Okay, so start off with what we're going to do with this. We are going to build a system that will make these doors open and Ed209 walk through. We'll also look at how we can log things to the player and set up triggers. At the moment we've still got the Kismet that we did in the last tutorial, which is he just walks. There's one addition to that, and that's sound. So I'm just going to open up Matinee and talk about how we can set up sound in Kismet, Matinee, sorry. We just make another group like we did with the animation, so this one's called Ed Sound. Then you right click and you add a soundtrack. Once you've done that, when you come to actually add keyframes, you'll be prompted for the sound that you want to use, and you'll have to look for a cue. I've done that in this particular section just by using my browser, looking for sound cues and finding something that sounds appropriate. Okay. If you open this file, it's already set up for you, but if you want to change the file or actually look for your own, then it's just a matter of loading these packages and testing the cues. You just have to double click on them and it will play some audio. Okay, so let's have a look at this at the moment. So I'm going to zoom out. At the moment you'll notice that this is scheduled to play for 10 seconds, however the walk is only a couple of seconds long. So if we actually play our map, give me a second. Ed will only walk so far, so we need to get him to walk the entire length of the corridor. Luckily for us, Chris has done an updated version of the walk cycle, so we can go and import that. So I'm going to go to show all resource types, find our Ed package, open up our anim set, go to animation. Now I've already imported it, but I'm going to show you how to do that. Just do the file import PSA and go to the resources that came with the DVD set, and you can find the walk loop. And just to show you the difference between the two, this is the one that we've looked at already. It's just the 2 steps, and then this is the one with the multiple steps. Okay, so obviously he's going to walk a lot further. So if I go back over into Matinee, I'm going to take out my original walk, hit the keyframe button and choose the walk loop, and then press OK. And now that will utilise the new walk. I'm going to rebuild the lighting for this. And play. And now you can see he's going to keep on walking much further. Okay. Okie dokes. So I'm going to call this video close for a second, and what I'm going to do is in the next step we'll look at moving around and using triggers.